Man, this fight became a lot more interesting, and you bet there's going to be many more people who's going to watch this fight now. Nobody expected a personal thing between Strickland and Dricus. Nobody thought that. And now there is. Strickland is still kind of questionable on how big of a star he actually is. He could be one of the bigger stars of the sport, and this fight is going to really tell on how famous this guy actually is. That's a big takeaway from both the Colby presser performance and Dricus' performance. Upping the ticket sales as well as getting in the opponent's head. 2 crazy press conferences back to back, and more dad stuff. Last time we had Colby Covington talking about Leon Edwards' dad, and now we have Dricus talking about Sean Strickland's dad. And he said that he used to beat him and stuff like that, so he's gonna give him a worse beating. That is really crazy. And Colby did strike a nerve on Leon Edwards. Looks like Dricus struck a nerve on Sean Strickland. Strickland really got agitated, even admitted so. And after, he said he wants to see him in the back after they fight to continue. And I believe Strickland. After they fight each other, if he wins or if it's like a decision, he doesn't get hurt in the fight, they gotta really watch out for him, man, because this fight became a lot more personal than just competition. Like, this is now a bit more. I've never seen Strickland in a personal kind of fight before. And he needs to really keep things intact for that fight because Dricus is a powerful guy. He's very dangerous with a lot of things that he does, from striking to grappling. And if he gives a lot of opportunities by exposing himself to Dricus, it could be even more worrisome than, let's say, Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. The only difference about this is that Strickland gets out there with his trash talking, you know what I'm saying? He brings a certain level of energy and could get, I wouldn't say he gets, I mean, unless I haven't heard it, I don't know if he ever gets like that personal when he trash talks other fighters, but he did say a lot of things about Ian Gary, and I don't think he ever said anything too personal about Dricus outside of the coach grabbing him stuff. So it's a little bit different in this, I think, than the Leon situation, because Leon, at least I've never heard Leon say anything crazy. So it's a little bit different with I'm matching your energy kind of thing with Dricus and Strickland. At the end of the day, my perspective on it all, it's the fight game. Mean words are never going to match punching each other in the face. Nothing said can match that. These guys are going to try to literally end each other. That is their goal. They're trying to end each other. People do have to understand that trash talking on that level, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's also a risk for someone to do that, because if they lose, they become the laughing stock of the sport for a while. And they'll be on compilations all over the place. They're going to be talked trash about by a lot of fans. There's going to be a lot of fans that might turn on them. It's a very risky way to go and trash talk your opponent. You could use it to your advantage to win the fight because you could get your opponent out of their element. But if you lose, it's like one of the worst things that can happen to you. But there were some interesting things that all the fighters were saying. So Volkanovski was the one that was being cool most of the time. He was even being fair to Ilia Topuria, saying that if he is like overly confident, it could play out well for him if he puts the work in. Sometimes being delusional can give you an extra edge. And I 100% agree with that, especially in this sport. Topuria wasn't really trash talking Volkanovski too much. He just said that he was going to knock him out. He was more so trash talking Sean O'Malley. In fact, 3 of the fighters on stage went after O'Malley. The middleweight champion Strickland, the featherweight challenger Ilia Topuria, and his own opponent Chito Vera. But how does someone dress up so colorful yet lack any kind of charisma to match it? It was funny, O'Malley said about Chito that his fight with Pedro Munoz was boring, but then Chito clapped back with, "Did you beat Pedro though?" And Sean O'Malley was like, "I knocked him on the second round." What is he talking about? The fight was a no contest. And it was very close. Even closer than Chito and Pedro's fight was. I don't know. O'Malley's trash talk really confuses me a lot, but thankfully the guy has an amazing fighting style. This is not a knock on O'Malley or anything. He's very colorful with the way he looks, and you would think the guy's so electrifying and charismatic, but his personality is kind of a bit too laid back compared to how he looks. Doesn't really say things too witty or entertaining or anything like that. His fighting style is entertaining, but his personality is kind of lackluster, if we're going to be completely honest. I would say probably more than any fighter on that stage. Dricus had good trash talking. People really watch Topuria for his fighting style. He's very entertaining to watch. But then Sean Strickland, he was making fun of O'Malley. He was making fun of Dricus. He was making fun of Colby Covington. He was taking shots at how there's no real men in the UFC anymore. What happened to all those guys? Why are fighters penning nails and having their coaches grab their crotch and stuff? Like, this is what Strickland's talking about. And he let some of the slurs come out. Strickland cannot be contained, right? He's going to say what he wants to say. And he even gave credit to Israel Adesanya, which was great to see, right? He called him one of the greatest middleweights of all time. He called him one of the greatest strikers of all time, which is something he never deviated from. Even going into the fight with Adesanya, Strickland always gave him that respect for his skills. Now, there were 2 things questionable on both Strickland and Dricus' side. So Dricus said that Strickland's performance against Adesanya was a fluke. I don't think you can have a fluke win like that when you dominate someone for 5 rounds. Like, if he knocked him out the way Dricus said he should have, then people probably would have said that was a fluke. But to outclass a guy for 5 rounds, that is not a fluke. You just outskilled them. There's no doubt about that. But then Strickland, on the other hand, was undermining Robert Whittaker and saying that Robert's not that great. He analyzed Whittaker down to the guy only has a blitz. And all you have to do is take that blitz away, and Whittaker is there for the taking. It's a very general and basic way to look at Whittaker. He obviously does much more than the blitz, but the blitz is what he's known for. Dricus did a really good job of intercepting it with the jab. So it looks like both fighters may be underestimating each other. Strickland's underestimating Dricus by saying that his opponent in Whittaker is not necessarily as good as people think he is. And then as for Dricus, he's underestimating Strickland by saying his win over Adesanya was a fluke. Add on top of that, the whole emotional aspect of this fight now, it became a lot more personal and maybe to Dricus' favor. Again, just like I said about with Leon Edwards, there are times when you get in an opponent's head, it could actually make them more dangerous. It could actually make them more focused on the fight, like Cody Garbrandt when he fought Dominic Cruz. There was a lot of trash talking between them two, especially from Cruz's side. And Cody came out there and fought beautifully. One of the greatest performances from a title challenger in UFC history. We could see something similar for the champion in Strickland, but it could go the other way around. The guy's not known for knockout power, so getting into his head could cause Strickland to throw much heavier punches with a guy that's more powerful than he is. But could he possibly expose some kind of weak chin out of Dricus? I don't think so. It is yet to be seen. But there's a lot of questions about the mental aspect of this fight now, and I personally think it's more on Dricus' side because he's the one that's pulling the puppet strings on Strickland. But yeah, that kind of trash talking, man, it looks like it might be becoming a bit of a norm, and it's crazy because Dricus went personal about Strickland after Strickland said that Colby is a piece of trash for bringing that stuff up about Leon, and then Dricus goes to him. So it looks like Dricus may have analyzed something there about Strickland. He doesn't sit right with someone talking about their opponent's family. And when he heard Strickland get animated against Colby Covington for doing that, to Dricus' perspective, it may have exposed a weakness of Strickland. If I start talking about some personal stuff, maybe I can get into his head. And it looks like it worked. At the end of the day, I'm going to say it again, it is the fighting sport. These two guys are going to try to knock each other out, take each other's brain cells, do as much damage as they can to each other. So what are words in comparison? It is very disrespectful, of course. And it's going to cause a lot of people to look at Dricus and maybe in a different light, as he always seemed like a pretty nice guy. And for him to say something like that is kind of wild to me at least. I always looked at him as a very nice guy, wouldn't talk trash like that to anybody. Like, for his sake, he better win, because if he loses after that, that's going to be on When Trash Talking Goes Wrong compilations. And he's going up against the bigger star. He's going up against a guy who has a lot of fans behind him. He's going up against a guy who promises to beat his head in and to continue after the fight is over in the back. If Strickland gets his way on this, if he does what he says he's going to do, it's going to amplify Strickland's star power to another level. And it's going to really put Dricus in a bad light for a lot of fans. But now if it goes the other way around, it could be, just like I mentioned with Colby Covington, it could be a great mental victory. And if that happens, I can see this kind of trash talking becoming more of a normal thing for this sport, whether we like it or not. And it looks like from Colby, a lot of people did not appreciate Colby for saying that kind of stuff. And here's the same thing with Dricus. And I wonder if people have I haven't checked the comments or posts on social media from other people, what they think about Dricus' trash talk compared to Colby Covington's. But I wonder if it's the same kind of energy. The media questions last time were so questionable, like that one guy asking Leon, did you take that personally? What kind of question is that? Even Leon was like, what is this guy asking? Of course it was personal. What do you think? I just threw a water bottle at this guy for that. This time, the questions are a little bit more average. They were asking about locations on fights, which is not that interesting of a question for a fan to ask. And everything was very basic, man. I wish there was more interesting media questions.